Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Eachine CineCan, featuring 1103 7000 kV motors, Emax Savon 4-bladed props. Flight controller is the Crazy Bee F4 version 3, which has a 10 amp rated ESC, a power switchable VTX from pit mode all the way up to 200 milliwatts, and of course the main player is the Caddx Tarsier, which looks like that without the ND filter, and its 2-board stack is right here. Comes with an XT30 for your battery connection. It originally had a battery tray, but I broke it off, so mine weighs just a touch over 65 grams. It is 85 millimeters motor post to motor post. It also did come with this Eachine branded 3S 300 milliamp battery, an extra set of props, a couple of tools, and some spare screws, cheapo depot battery strap, and an extra cable for the Caddx Tarsier, camera control board, Tarsier quick guide, and a manual for binding and other things. And it all fits neatly inside its box. As you can see there, that tree, the leaves are moving ever so slightly, and in this is such a small platform, that's something to note, because you're going to want to get stable footage, and I'm actually quite surprised at how stable this footage is. I actually wanted to fly through my neighbor's car there. They left both doors open for me. Well, not really. They were just hauling groceries in the house. They just moved in here a while ago. They got 2 young girls, and I'll show them to you here a little bit. They are firecrackers and a great match for my 9-year-old. But back to the quad. So this is a cruising flight, and I'll show you a couple of different flights. One of the things that's difficult is getting the framing for your 4K or your HD footage right. It seems to me that the angles of the cameras don't meet, so that's one of the things you'll have to learn when you're flying yours. And I am trying to fly slow, and I do have the camera all the way down to the bottom, and this is after several crashes. Actually spent the first few days trying to fly this thing in the house, and I'll show you those. I couldn't do more than 1 lap without crashing. It's too heavy. It's not agile enough for flying in the house, at least for the way I want to fly. You know, I'm in my attempts that I'll show you bits of, it's pretty modest, and I still couldn't pull it off. So unless you're just gonna kind of slowly hover around inside, I don't think inside, at least inside a home, is very viable. But I'm not flying the stock battery here. I'm flying the Tiny Hoop or MyLipo 3S 333 milliamp battery. That is one of the best batteries that fit in these battery trays that I've tried. Of course, with my tray being broken, I didn't have to do that, but I also didn't think it would be fair to run a different sort of battery, because then that kind of changes the review a little bit. I try to run as close to stock as I can, but I think that if you're going to be flying this in a cruising sort of manner, I would definitely get one of those Tiny Whoop batteries if you can afford them. They are not cheap, but they are a good quality battery. I've run them down several times, lower than I should have, and they just seem to bounce back, and we just keep going with them. But we've got a nice sunny day, and I am flying with the ND filter on, so that's something else to note. The ND filter helps to get out that last little bit of jello, which you might still see. You'll see some shutter. If you catch one of these full sun shots and you look in the distance, you might be able to see it still. But if you're watching the footage on a big TV, it's going to be a lot easier to pick out those little things. But again, this is, of course, a really small platform, and why you would want to kind of film with this platform is that it is very small. It's not likely to bother a whole lot of people. If anyone does question you, you can show it to them, and they probably won't be offended, or they won't rage on you at the very least. Also, flying around the neighborhood, you can get an idea for the range that I get. These SPI receivers aren't the greatest when it comes to range, so I wouldn't expect to get more than, say, about 100 to 120 meters. If I were to walk that around my neighbor's house as we're headed that way, I can get out and across and into the street, and I think that's somewhere around 110 or 120 meters, depending upon if you go straight line or if you kind of go around the trees. So that's the sort of range that I was able to successfully get. Of course, that could vary from your environment to my environment. If you have cell phone towers, high power, Wi-Fi, anything that would cause interference that can shorten your range. It actually could bother your FPV feed as well. While we're talking about the FPV feed, the Caddx Tarsier has actually got a nice FPV view. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's actually really, really good, or standard, I would say. So that's one of the big bonuses of having those 2 camera lenses. And quite honestly, I was hesitant about reviewing this because of the 4K footage in my old computer. I was pleased to find that my computer can play it, but it doesn't do a great job when trying to do other things with it. So the editing is going to have to take place on a laptop that I borrowed, but that's a sob story for another day. Let's jump into the flight in the backyard. So the backyard flight is more aggressive, and I'm going to start out by doing some punch outs just so you get an idea. One of the things that we look for is what we've termed or coined yaw washout, to where the nose will pitch up and then it'll yaw around left to right. You kind of lose control because the machine does that on its own, and this is just kind of a short demonstration of this machine doesn't seem to have it. Matter of fact, the tune on this machine was surprisingly good. I really didn't expect it. I have done some flips and rolls, and I'll show you that in the picture when we get back to the desk. The tune was really good. I was really surprised by that. So that's one big bonus, because getting the tune right, and this is running Betaflight 404, that can be a bit tricky. And I don't want to say it's right. I don't want to anoint it like it's right, but it flies pretty well. It's not really tight as far as being able to fly in tight spaces, and that's one of the reasons why I struggled in my house. But it's very good at what it's kind of designed, or the category it's for. It's not going to be a highly agile machine. Matter of fact, none of our whoops are really agile. You can get into the 85 millimeter and get the weight way down, and they get pretty fun to fly. But for the most part, these are really kind of have their own little niche or categories. You've got, 65 millimeters in your house for racing around. You've got others that are bigger and heavier that are made more for filming, like this one is, whether it be an HD or 4K, and this is all 4K, by the way, if I didn't already say that. And I'm not going plaid here. I'm going about as aggressively as I can and maintain some sort of control. It's not as though I'm struggling to control. I just don't want to wreck it, because I've got that water in the yard, and if I bounce off of something and land into that, then dang it, I'm kind of upset. So let's show you my neighbors. They came running over one day when I was flying, and they have their little corgi dog who's just like those two girls. That dog is a firecracker, and the dog actually, maybe you can see it here, the dog actually gets away from the youngest, and she falls down and skins her knee, and then the dog comes up and starts sniffing me and getting all excited, and then jumps on my back, and I'm like, oh, get the dog, I'm gonna crash. But anyways, it was a fun moment I thought I would share with you. So I want to give myself plenty of room to show you some of the crash footage from inside, a little bit of a durability testing. Also, something that I found out about mine that hopefully is not the same with yours is I broke, or I don't have, part of the mold is missing up here, because I can't secure the VTX in there, so I had to secure it with the other two sides, and that was a little bit disappointing. Also, it doesn't look like I got my canopy very tight, does it? I need to screw those back in a little bit. So we've got one screw to secure the canopy down here, and two on each side. And everything is surprisingly light. We're using that trash can sort of like frame. Matter of fact, it is the trash can frame. It's one we've seen many, many times before. If you're flying this outside, one thing I would think you would want to do is secure the motor wires down here a little bit. You could tape them, you can zip tie them. I think tape would be the most tedious way, but also probably the best way to make sure the motor wires don't get pulled very hard by something you might pass, because you probably will be flying something like this close to other things, whether it be a bush or a tree, or you might be surfing the treetops with it. And also the camera angle is limited. I started down here. This is, that's as far down as she goes right there. Maybe I should take the ND filter off and you can see it a little bit better. So without the ND filter, yeah, that's as far down as she goes right there. That's your camera angle for your slow flight cruising. And I don't think that's quite enough, but you might feel differently. But the up tilt that you can get, it goes up pretty good. So if you're flying like that, which is about where I was flying when I was doing that one in the backyard, that's a pretty good pace. Nothing to sneeze at. And you also notice that there's a backing on the back of here. Now, as far as the Tarsier goes, I think that's probably been reviewed to death. So if you're looking at this, you've probably already seen the review. And I'll mention the one thing that seemed to confuse me the most, or make me have kind of a senior moment here, and that was the buttons. Because I was looking on my computer on a manual, and I was like, what do these buttons do? And I knew it had Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi antenna is right here. And I was just trying to figure out how to make it work. And it did take me about 2 hours to figure out. Some of that's on me, because I was having a dull moment. But I was looking at the picture that they have on the Caddx website wrong, to where I thought the buttons were, I actually thought the buttons were backwards, because the picture is actually referenced from the other side. So when it comes down to it, and you can reach these buttons, I kind of have to turn it upside down and do it with my pinky, because this opening right here. But you can get a paintbrush like I use to punch that, or I pick up a stick up off the ground. I prefer not to use anything conductive, because what if I slip and I get up in there and it's powered? I don't want that happening. But this one starts and stops your recording. It also gives you your mode. And then this one is to turn on and off Wi-Fi and some of the other features that it's got there. The USB port is a kind of tricky to get to. You almost have to take off this prop in order to get the USB port in, and getting the SD card, which is right down in there, in and out, is a pain in the backside. So I suspect you're going to be going the USB route or using your phone and Wi-Fi in order to get your footage off the camera. That's also how you can manipulate the, see my VTX right there? It's already coming off again. I must have crashed it since my last repair. Dang it. I'm going to have to put some foam up in there or something. Can you see that right down in there, hopefully? Yeah, it's coming off, sadly enough, because I don't have anything on this side. I don't know if that's a manufacturing defect or I broke it. I have a feeling that I may have broke it, but I haven't. None of the kids have turned up with a screw in their foot or anything, so I don't know where it went. One of the real surprising things out of, I have been surprised by this. I really thought it would fly like a brick. I didn't think it would be any fun. And I'm surprised. I know it's not an agile screamer, but it just surprised me. I did not expect to have much fun. I almost wanted to turn this down, but I thought I need to take a look at it, because if it's bad, then someone needs to make sure that it's said that it's bad. But it's not bad, and actually it's surprising what the price is. The Caddx Tarsier itself is like, what, 90 bucks? And right now, I know this is a sale price, and Banggood does this stuff all the time, but the price is $170.99. They're saying that's 25% off. We could probably get a coupon code and put that down in the section down below. You could probably save another 10% off of that, so another $17 possibly. I'm not sure if they'll do that for me or not on this particular product. It seems to be a kind of a premium product, but at a really low price already. So that's a bit surprising. It lived up to my crashes inside, and I also had one crash outside. Hopefully I've shown you that in that picture-in-picture down in the lower left. So the durability of this, you know, we all crash differently, so if you fail safe from 100 feet onto concrete, I think most things are going to come out of that damaged. But I think within reason, if you're flying this within its capabilities and you don't fail safe or something unusual happen, I do think it'll be fairly durable. I do worry about this canopy because it is so light that if it gets loose, but it's held there, the camera's primarily held with that one screw up front, you know, can we get more canopies? That's the question I have. I looked before I started recording this video. I didn't find the canopies, but I may not have been searching for the right part. Maybe I needed to search for CineCan rather than looking for under the Eachine brand. I'm not sure, but if I can find spare parts, I'll put a notation on screen. I'll look again as I'm doing this editing, because the editing is going to take forever using the laptop that I borrowed. So yeah, for me, pretty positive experience. I enjoyed reviewing the footage. Oh, and one last thing, the audio is actually different on this. You know, normally when we hear the audio, it's that really high-pitched whining noise. A lot of people comparing it to getting your teeth drilled. But this one was actually, at least when the props weren't spinning, it was really reasonable. Here's a little sample of me talking to the CineCan. So this is me talking to the quad, the CineCan, digital audio, supposedly. How does it sound? From a human voice perspective. And because I forgot, I'm going to go ahead and put some footage on screen now. I'm going to put the onboard audio at about 30% so it won't blow your ears, but you get an idea of what the recording is. Sure, it still needs a windscreen on there because every whiz you do, or every time the wind kicks up or catches that microphone, you get that blowing noise on it. But I thought at very least it was reasonable, unlike the previous iterations that we've seen of filming HD whoops. So if you've got a build like this going on, I'll go ahead and I'll put the PIDs that I did not help them, they developed these PIDs. I'll put those on screen. Also a filter. Also, their filters that they may have used. Remember, this is Betaflight 4.0.4, so not the newest, at least as of the time I'm doing this recording. I think 4.05 is the very latest that's full-fledged, not a nightly. I guess the only one disappointing part would be the battery tray that I broke off. They do have other versions of this. You do not have to get it with an SPI receiver. You can get it with Crossfire. You can get it without a receiver, but if you get it without a receiver, you need to be prepared to pretty much take everything out and put it all back together again. That's a choice you can make. It's there. It also comes with FlySky. Unfortunately, no Spectrum, no DSMX is available for this one, at least not yet. So what do you think? Is this another tool for your quad tool chest? Do you need a high definition or 4K filming rig? Are you interested in these sort of things at all? Should I look at any more? That's a big question I have. Because if you're not interested, then maybe I'm not interested either. Although I had a good time here and I was surprised by it, maybe it's something that we just won't see on the channel anymore if you guys just aren't interested. So let me know down in the comment section down below. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.